where we look at developments in the economy and also the financial markets. We'll be looking at a very interesting space today, a sector that's very critical even in times of crisis, logistics and even supply chain. We need to lead the discussion on the COVID-19 and its implications for logistics and supply chain in the Nigerian economy is Mr. Sola Obabori, Group Managing Director and CEO of Resta Express PLC. Good morning, sir. Nice to have you, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And with me in the studio is Mr. Bosun Omofaye, CEO of Frontier Africa Reports. Nice to have you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. yeah. You've always been talking about logistics and the supply chain. So today we have Mr. Sola Obabori to engage. So, Mr. Sola, how's the experience been on the lockdown so far? And we're seeing the easing now.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
We're not out of the woods yet, as we all know. Government is trying to.
Okay, can you hear me, sir? Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So we're trying to get you clearly on the your experience so far during the lockdown, and we're trying to understand how it has impacted your space and sector. Can you hear me, sir? Okay, so Mr. Sola Obabori, the Group Managing Director of Resta Express PLC, is trying to look at the implications of this on the logistics and business, a very critical sector in the Nigerian economy. And like you always talk about it, Mr. Bosun, it is very important that, yes, this sector continues to thrive amidst the challenges it's having in the economy. And we know that for people like Mr. Sola Obabori, they're working very hard to ensure that they continue to play their role in driving activities in the space and the economy amidst the challenges that they go through every day. So I feel that this is very important at this time, even the measures to ensure that they can work effectively. Just yesterday, the Association of Private Transport Owners were calling on the government to see what they can do in terms of support, interventions, like we're seeing in some climes, support to sectors on the economy.
I don't know what the Union of Road Transport Workers would actually want. One thing that I'm sure of is that whatever we are working on, the folks who are if folks want to travel, they'll still travel. Yeah. Despite the 4 to 5 weeks lockdown across some parts of the country, I know that, yes, we still have folks who are involved in farming and agriculture, engaging in some of these activities. A few restrictions had been there, so folks will continue to do this. So the need for logistics will always be there. If you had harvested some maybe not so much perishable agro products during these weeks, you want to move them. So there will always be the transporters who will be ready to take these goods off you and move them. So and get it either to the market or to the processing and what have you. Yeah. So I'm sure there is a lot of there are a lot of things that the folks in logistics are doing now. The government cannot really bail out every sector of the economy. So I think we need to understand that we cannot bail out every part of the economy. Yeah. We have to, the government will have to, and government is prioritizing. Again, the government is leaning on a very, very low budget and low finance, as it were. So you cannot bail out everyone and say, take money. Government has done something, reducing the price of petrol, and I hope diesel and others would be in the same in tandem. So that would help them. For the transport industry, perhaps government would talk to insurance companies, for example, in terms of the insurance for these vehicles, and if they would give them some palliatives, as it were, in terms of the motor insurance, third-party insurance for those vehicles that are involved in logistics, so that they can have some, and then if they will need spares that are imported, do we need to talk to customs to give them some leeway, maybe just a few things there, but not cash or whatever given to them, because see, we have 200 million people and we love moving around. So transportation will always be there. Folks who want to move. Before the lockdown, folks have bags of gari and bags of yam flour that they produce and what have you. They need to move what they've harvested, cassava, raw cassava from farm to where they will process it. So they'll be calling right now on transporters who are involved in logistics to do those businesses. And these are part of the informal economy, as it were, that is not dead, even with the pandemic. Let's get it straight. The economy, the oil is, take the big shot. Aviation, for example, take major hits. Those were direct in the line of what you call the exposure to a pandemic. But when you start going down to the bottom of the pyramid, you find out that if you have your rice or whatever to harvest, you will still harvest them. When you harvest them, you need hands to help you work on them. Then you need packaging. Then you need to move it, okay, and get them to market. So these businesses at the base of the pyramid are still ongoing.
Ongoing and very critical.
So I'm very, very critical. So this is part of the different nature of our own economy here. Again, because if you have banana plantation, you will have to harvest them, then you move them to market. If it's tomato, if it's pepper, if it's whatever, most of what we consume as food come in raw and form and hard form, not processed like you have in Europe, in the US and elsewhere. So and these all come from various agricultural activities. So those things were still there. So I'm sure if you go to the markets, even during the lockdown, folks were bringing in some of these products, and they were very cheap. Mangoes in baskets and all that. Tomatoes and other things were cheap because they were looking to offload it, make some little money out of it because they're perishable goods. So there's no problem with that, really. But where Red Star Express, for example, as a company, one of the logistics company, and it's good we have it listed on the stock exchange.
It's back on.
It's back on. It's the fact that this is a company that is expanding and wants to do a lot more than parcel business, and they are investing in that. And I think they deserve all the support they can get. I think we should listen to him.
Yeah, Mr. Sola.
And for him to give us this view.
Yes.
Okay, nice to hear from you. So we would like to get an overview of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the operations of logistics, businesses, and even the supply chain in the Nigerian economy.
Thank you very much. Analysis being done by Professor Obabori on that side.
Yes, sir.
He's an expert on this subject matter.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's already wetting the ground for me.
You guys have the money, so talk to us about how you guys going to change the game here.
So talking about what the industry is dealing with right now, without any doubt, people and goods and services are the lifeblood of any organization. When people are able to move from place to place, when goods can move from one point to another and services can be rendered for a fee, that's what drives the totality of any economy around the world. That's why when we saw the COVID-19, which began as more of a health crisis, without any doubt, which also, has moved into big economic issue for the entire world, with its own humanitarian crisis also following therefrom. Of course, we're going to have a lot to deal with in the course of time. But as we look at our own industry, in fact, there are also security and safety issues that have also come up, very notably in the last 1-2 months of what we are dealing with since February, as a matter of fact, that COVID came to Nigeria. In terms of RESTA, one of the things that companies of our nature should be doing at this time is to ensure that you have a diversified portfolio of what you offer to the public. Otherwise, you are on the path of going down the drain. You just can imagine if you have a courier company or a logistics company that is only focused on carrying non-essential products at this time. You can imagine what would have happened to such a company. You won't be able to stay in business. And that's why one of the key things that have come out of this COVID is to teach everyone that you cannot be a master of just one part of the trade. Your business has to be substantially diversified to handle the various things that can happen, whether during peacetime or during wartime, so to speak, as we are dealing with right now. So we have to be able to play in the agro space, which is to provide cold chain logistics to move agro products, move poultry products, move meat products from wherever they are butchered or wherever they are raised to the farms for people to consume. It didn't matter what was happening in this space of time. Just like you argued a few minutes ago, food had to move from the point of production to the point of consumption. And even governments across the world understood that. If you look at what is happening in the global arena, for example, look at the United States, for example, you will see how much money that a company like Amazon will have made around this time. In fact, from the Circular report, they did over $100 and something billion in the last 3 or 4 months, in addition to the regular revenue profile that they had before. And the personal profile of the founder of the company grew by more than $24 billion by virtue of being able to respond substantially at a time like this. So for me, you will see a need for business diversification that covers the agro space, that covers the essential product space substantially, that covers the e-retail or e-marketing side of the business. That way, you're able to respond across the value chain and you're able to stay in business for as long as possible. And that would be my solution for now.
Okay, sir, how would you assess the lockdown management measures? Because every lockdown management measure is very critical for logistics business and supply chain. Whether in South Korea, where they are trying to ease their lockdown now to reopen the economy, or in Japan that has extended their lockdown to May 31st, or even in the US where they are beginning to facially reopen the economy. And now Nigeria, major cities like Lagos and Abuja and even Ogun State have brought out facial reopening of the economy. How are these measures, how would you assess it in Nigeria, and how critical is it to ensure that your industry continues to operate effectively?
We can't say it's been such a perfect system, but also I'll give them a pass mark in terms of management across the nation. This is a crisis situation that no one planned for. We do not plan for a crisis and think that when the crisis finally comes, you will be able to work according to the rule book you may have created. A crisis is a crisis. It doesn't matter what you have documented in your business continuity and contingency plan. When the real crisis comes, you are put to the real test of the time. And that's what we have seen. Many of the big companies like ours have what you can call the business continuity plan. Government gave us regulations as to what you can do, and they gave us all kinds of permits to enable us to move from one point to another. But because of the pandemic we're dealing with, that has its own health issue. Even the staff are afraid of going on some of these stores if you want them to move food right now, because it's a battle between your life and your livelihood. So you have to take one, which is the same debate we've had for a long time in the last 2-3 months. Every company in Nigeria has had such a debate. Should we go and work, or should we stay at home? Which one is the best option for Nigeria? And so in terms of the lockdown, I would say government to a large extent has managed this pretty well by ensuring that those who need to move essential products are able to move from one part of the country to another, despite the need to restrict the movement of people from one place to the other. But to a large extent, I will score government as having the pass mark as far as making sure that things can move from point to point is concerned. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of battle at the ports in terms of those who are importing things, and people had to go and make case to the government, and they had to soften some of the very strict regulations that were put around clearing of goods at the port, etc. Even at the airport, not far away from us here, they had to give us some waiver to ensure that things could come in. and then we could clear them and transport them from Lagos. How do you get the COVID materials into town if you won't allow us to clear the goods at the port and transport them within the country? So to a large extent, I would say the lockdown has been pretty well managed. And now that we are seeing some easing, that also we have to follow through as things unfold.
I'm looking at the industry, your industry, and then I'm looking at the various measures announced by government and some government agencies, such as the Central Bank and others, the Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Vice President, and others, in terms of how we move forward from here. Do you see any business opportunities, and if yes, in what areas? I'm sure you're careful what you're saying because of your competitors, maybe likely be watching this and perhaps later.
And this is not about our companies, it's about industry.
I know.
It's not about me right now. It's not about my company. It's about
where is it? Do you see opportunities?
It's about the survival of our country and offering opinion that I think is in the best interest of all.
I appreciate that.
So do you see like the supply chain, logistics, and all of that within this pandemic staying with us? Well, we hope not, but if we take some professional advice, it's going to be with us for some time to come. We just need to adjust to a new way of life. So
do you see business opportunities in some of the stimulus, the rearrangements, the focus or refocusing that the government is taking, for example, whether it is in healthcare, industrialization, manufacturing, and all of that? What's the business opportunities here for you folks?
No, absolutely. There are plenty of opportunities. I mean, these opportunities have been there before COVID. What COVID has done is to fast track the need to move or to ramp up on some of the investments that people are already doing. The retail sector has leveraged substantially on technology before now. What COVID has done is to say you have to go deeper than where you have been before. You have to do a lot more investments in your IT infrastructure to ensure that you can meet the requests of people, even as they make them on their telephone or by whatever digital platform that they want to use. That's something that has come to the fore very strongly. So if you have very strong digital platform, you're able to respond to all manner of requests that have to do with retail. All retail requests can be treated. So you talk about e-commerce opportunities that are there. You talk about agro supply chain logistics that is also there on a mega scale. Unfortunately, I didn't hear the government also doing something for this industry in terms of some of the stimulus packages that are available. I didn't hear much. I haven't had much. Maybe some of them are there, but I haven't had much. You will hear government trying to segment some amount of money for the medical industry, for the pharmaceutical industry. But when all of these fellows have done their work, somebody needs to move the goods from one point to another. Government has not created a special fund for this industry to ensure that all players across board can draw money, just like the medical diagnostic businesses can draw money right now to be able to expand their businesses. This industry has suffered this type of neglect for a long time. And this might be a time for government also to look at this arena and ensure that across board, there is a substantial amount of investment that is put in place to support players in this industry. How about the 500 billion naira stimulus package for this industry that businesses can draw from at a single digit? If you can extend that to the health sector, I think you should also be able to extend that to the transportation sector, because when all is said and done, whatever is produced will have to be moved from one point to another. So very strongly, agro-logistics must get some help. E-commerce businesses must also get a lot of help. Parcel delivery must also get a whole lot of help to ensure that they can respond to the new opportunities that are becoming. Don't forget again that quite a lot of jobs will be lost. And many of us in this industry are expected to absorb, some of the unemployment that will happen across board from other players within the economic space. How do we respond if we don't have very strong financial backing to help us to absorb some of these opportunities? So the need for our industry to get access to funding is now. If you approach any of the big banks right now and looking for funding for trucks, you're going to go through some trouble. And you're going to be borrowing at the same rate as people who want to do some other kind of businesses will be borrowing. Whereas the country is relying on our industry to do the transition from one point to another, where we do not get any special form of support to make sure that our businesses can thrive. So this might be a good time to look at funding for this industry one more time. I mean, companies of our nature who can go to the stock market have advantage of raising funds and raising bonds and raising whatever we need to do our business. But that's not the case across board. So it might be a good time now to find some general help for this industry. Because by the time the sector opens up again, I can tell you that government will rescue them. That is happening around the world already. Go to Germany, you will see government giving money to Lufthansa. That's what will happen in our industry. All of the local airlines that are here, who have been home in the last four weeks or so, will ask government for some stimulus, and they will get it. But what happens to the guys who are below the ladder, who have to also do a lot of the last mile deliveries as we have them today? So that's what I'll be advocating for the government to look at as the Vice President is putting some of his final paperwork together for the federal government.
Maybe you would also advise your colleagues in the industry for more of them to join you as a listed company on the stock exchange, or maybe on the NESD or NESD OTC PLC. Would you be advising them to go through the same route of being a listed company, because that also creates more wealth?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, there are different interests in different companies. Some would like to stay big, but without being quoted. We like to be quoted because there are many advantages that you get if you are quoted. I mean, you have access to funding, which of course we just did a couple of months ago and was extremely successful. Some companies are funded by their foreign owners, and they may not want to be listed in Nigeria. But I think time will come that they may have to also be forced to list in Nigeria. We see that an example in MTN and in the telecom sector, where at some point in time they didn't have an option that to go and be listed. That also may happen in our industry in the course of time by ensuring that people are listed and they can attract both local and foreign investments into their businesses. However, there are several other platforms that we ride on. One of them is what you mentioned now. Nigeria Economic Summit Group is a platform that we use to leverage some of our intentions and proposals to the federal government. NECA is also a solid platform. Nigerian Employers Consultative Association is doing quite a lot of work to amplify our voices to the federal government, because they have access to government on a day-to-day basis. And they articulate some of these issues in our industry, in our ecosystem, and push them forward to the federal government. In our own local sector, we have, 2 or 3 major associations, NEACA and ANCO. And of course, we happen to be very strong players in those 2. And we'll be ensuring that we speak to them to ensure that we can also amplify some of these suggestions to the federal government in due course. But I think through whatever platforms that this needs to be pushed, government needs to pay attention a lot more than ever before to the transportation sector, which is the fallback position when all is said and done.
So Mr. Sola, in a few minutes, can you tell us post-COVID-19, what will be the drivers and then indeed policy enablers for the growth of the logistics and supply chain businesses in Nigeria?
Driver number 1 is technology, as we have said. Now we are beginning to see that people can work from home. Not everybody needs to come to work. I'm sitting in my office right now. But to a large extent, a lot of our staff, up to 50% of the people are at work today. Because what we now do is rotation. Some people are at work this week, some will be here next week. But for some of us who have to be here every day, we are here to ensure that things are running. So first is that technology has to be leveraged very seriously for the things that can be done from home. Of course, technology cannot solve all the problem. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that. For things that can be done back end, technology can help. But for the things that will require brick and mortar, if you need a warehouse, for example, you may need to have a warehouse. If you need the trucks, you have to buy the trucks. If you need to have space at the airport to move things from point to point, you will need to do all of this. However, tech is one of them. The diversified business model that I spoke about before will also have to come in very strongly now. And then what I would call contingency planning will have to come very strongly. In addition to that, there will be a lot of emphasis on health, safety, and environment. Now, nobody comes into your premises now without having to be checked with a thermometer and ensuring that they can wash their hands and have sanitizer. I mean, after Ebola, some of the companies, developed such attitude. But after some time, in our usual way, we went back to our old ways. But now, I think we have to worry a lot more because nobody is sure when COVID-19 will finally go. So this culture has to be ingrained going forward to ensure that we can cope with post-COVID-19 era.
Okay, Mr. Sola Obabori, we know you have another critical engagement. It was nice having you to discuss your thoughts around the implications of COVID-19 on the logistics and supply chain business in Nigeria. And I think, Mr. Boson, you really enjoyed these dimensions.
Yeah, I do. I was just to ask one quick final question, with just about 1 minute.
Yeah.
What are your main concerns as we move forward here in your business, your industry or subsector? Is it exchange rate? Is it inflation? Is it interest rate? What are your views about all of this? Do you think we have what it takes to fix some of those things and still have some measure of investment needed for infrastructure? Be doing logistics, you still need good roads, you need rails and what have you. What are your thoughts around this corridor very quickly?
Thank you very much. Very solid question. We're going to be dealing with a rough time, so to speak. Quarter 2, quarter 3, and hopefully by quarter 4, I expect that things should begin to pick up. Because we are not even sure of when the vaccine for COVID will come. When that comes, then we will all be at peace to some extent. So we will have to worry a lot. I mean, by virtue of the fact that the price of oil has dropped substantially for Nigeria and across the world, as a matter of fact. Revenue of the government will drop substantially. And that's why you will see that the Federal Revenue Service was asking us to come and pay our tax as early as possible, just to ensure that government has some funding to be able to run the country. We are going to be dealing a lot with the issue of forex. Devaluation is going to be a big issue. Cost of buying trucks now naturally will skyrocket. And these are big issues to deal with. In 2016, I recall that some of the trucks that were buying for 22 million went as high as 40 million. When the value of the naira to the dollar went from 180 to 520 at a point and then came back to stabilize around 360. Now, if you check in the open market, you will see that it's over around 400 naira now. Thank God for CBN that is coming to stem that a little bit by, providing some funding to be able to, push the effect of what we've been dealing with. So I see us going through a whole lot in terms of being able to respond to opportunities. I see Nigeria going through some strain because when government doesn't have sufficient funding from the export of oil, how do they fund infrastructure? How do they fund health? The Lagos state government was saying something about increasing its own spending on health to about 18% in their budget provisions. How are they going to get that? Where will the funding come from? The states are going to go through a whole lot of time because if the funding from the federal government doesn't come, how do they fund their own operations at the state level? And that's why the issue of ingenuity for all governments across the board will have to come now. Government will have to look at the issue of cost of governance itself. These are big issues that have been there. Companies will have to look at how to cut down this and that. Quite a lot of debate is going on in the public space right now as to what should we cut, what shouldn't we cut. Even the federal government has a proposal on the table for many years in terms of what it needs to do to cut down on the size of the government itself. And so at every government level, whether national or subnational, it is time to look inwards. In fact, some government appointees have had to sacrifice about 50% of their salaries from some state government, as you are following in the news. That shows the type of pressure we'll have to deal with going forward. Forex will be a big issue. Devaluation of currency will be a big issue. Cost of governance will be a big issue. Companies have to cut down where they have to and be able to look at new opportunities where they can be found as we go forward in the year 2020. I believe that there will always be light at the end of the tunnel. We are dealing with a very hard situation right now, but I think we've gone through cycles like this before. 2008, we had a similar challenge, even though it was not COVID related. 2016, we had a similar challenge. And one of the things we did was to create new lines of businesses that are still sustaining us up until now. Because once there's a challenge, you have to now look inwards. Where are the opportunities and how do we leverage on those opportunities to create new wealth for organization? I would say in closing that I see light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully by quarter 4 this year, we should be on our way to total recovery from whatever it is we have lost thus far during COVID.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sola Obabori, for sharing your thoughts. Once again, we appreciate you. Mr. Sola Obabori is the Group Managing Director of Red Star Express PLC. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Very nice, very insightful one.
Yeah.
And then picking up from there, I think I need to say thank you to him for putting some of the monetary, currency, whatever issues into context within that, because again, aviation industry is getting a big hit. So a lot of logistics in Europe and elsewhere around the world are moving to roads.
Yeah.
And that brings us to, do we have good roads? So if you buy in a truck from 20 million to 40 million, who covers that for you? Where is the money coming from? Yeah. You have to generate it from your business. And that brings us to the fact that we have a lot of issues to deal with. Yeah. We just need to use this opportunity. And sometimes I feel very sorry for the Nigerian government, even though basically we're paying for things we ought to have done 10, 25 years ago or whatever, in terms of logistics, roads, good roads, access roads, and what have you, that make sure that ensures that even if the cost of a truck moves from 20 million to 40 million, you will drive them on the roads for longer because the roads are good. You look at Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway all the way to Sango, Water, Industrial Estate, is a national disgrace. Trucks keep falling every day, throwing their goods on the road, and I feel for these truckers, I feel for the life of those who drive them, I feel for the companies, I feel for the logistic companies, I feel for those who import or those who are making exports down to the ports, and these goods are just thrown into on the roads because, or just left there for days because the roads are bad. So we have quite a we have our house on fire as a country, so to speak, and we should approach it in a similar manner. But again, I think this is a time also for the government to take a deeper look at the debt market, or the debt capital market, to be more precise.
Debt capital market.
Yes, because if we can do infrastructure fund,
like the one that's been packaged, like Mr.
Yes, the NID. Yes, the NIDF. Maybe it's time for us to also have a health bond.
We should, I mean, I discussed that with Mr. Patrick earlier.
Yeah, okay.
And he said social bonds will be very critical at this time.
Yes, you can do a social bond, because we did a green bond. We did about 50 billion. I think twice we've done about the 30 or 50 billion, both on FMDQ and the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We can do a bond tied to pharmaceutical. It's good what the central bank is doing on one hand and supporting them. What I want to see is that we use this opportunity to drive more companies to the capital market.
Very important.
I'm sorry, I'm an apostle of the financial markets.
Because it's about wealth creation.
Because that is where you create long-term funds.
Yes.
And like I just asked the gentleman, the MD of Resta Express, talk to your guys. If you talk to 50 of them, perhaps 10 of them will come to the market. We'll appreciate that, even if there are 5. Then you have a bigger sector. If you look, when we keep saying that the market does not truly represent the size of the economy or a very good gauge, or it means because a lot of companies are not at the marketplace. And the market is ready to absorb them. But again, the government will lead the way. So at the end of this all, hold on a second. I don't want us to use this opportunity to fund the pharmaceuticals, the hospitals, the diagnostics, and what have you through the central bank window and the bankers committee. At the end of the day, I don't have a bigger increased number of pharmaceuticals listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange or on NESD. Yes. Please, I want to see that happen. It is not enough for them to take funds or support from the central bank, or maybe through the FIRS or the Ministry of Finance or Customs, whatever, to get our healthcare. We must see more of these healthcare and pharmaceutical companies listed on our own exchanges in Nigeria. That is what I want to see moving forward. It is not enough to just support them during this hard time. We must show them the way to Broad Street. We must show them the way to Customs Street. We must show them the way on where they can create wealth for Nigerians. See, if you have more hospitals listed, if you have more laboratories and those who are into research, whatever as you have in the US, for example, or in Germany, or in France, listed on the exchange, folks want to put their money where their life is. If you have Gilead, company called Gilead, in the US, yes, you have Roche,
Pfizer?
Roche, which is also developing some vaccine for this, and you have them here listed on our own exchange. If it's coming from Nemeth, for example, or M&B, imagine what that was. Just 2 years ago, the World Health Organization got M&B, Baker, PLC, to be a manufacturer, Okay, and I think last year there's another deal that May and Baker also got in producing some drugs that will be circulated not only in Nigeria but across West Africa. Yeah. That will now look at the share price of these companies, that few listed companies on the exchange moving up. That is how you create wealth. That is how you create jobs. Because once you get these contracts to produce drugs for UNICEF or for World Health Organization or for Medicine Sans Frontier or whatever, they will start to hire more. Then you begin to create more jobs. And then thank you. Then the bigger May and Baker, the bigger Neiman Pharmaceutical, the bigger the size of company income tax that the FIRS gets, the bigger what Lagos State will get. Yes. The bigger the personal income tax that will be paid, the bigger the size of VAT that may come through there, the bigger the value chain in terms of the drugstores and health drug centers and whatever, the bigger for everyone. Yeah. So we need to use this opportunity to build industries, but not just to support those who are outside the market, but to bring them also to the market and tell Emzo Pharmaceuticals, please, can you get listed on the stock exchange, share this wealth, do wealth creation, have a bigger shareholder base, let both local and foreign investors come into Emzo Pharmaceutical, for example, and a few others, and make sure that they are on the market. It brings confidence.
Very important.
Okay, to these companies, it brings believability. People believe in them more. Yeah. And then our names goes global. Because once you are listed, let me tell you, UNICEF and WHO will deal with you more likely if you're a listed pharmaceutical companies or healthcare. Because the structure of the global financial markets is the same everywhere. Yeah. They would rather deal with you first before dealing with you because you are based in one village in Kogi State where I came from. So it's good to go to the market. Yes. The market is the first. Look at what is happening to Boa Group and Boa Cement, and Anaji Rabiu. And that's how the market takes you to the global level.
Global standard.
The global standard. So you have more healthcare companies. Then we can say, okay, fine, we have a bond, 20, 25, 30 years, and folks can invest. The PFAs can get in there. The insurance can get in there. It helps.
They know that this is real.
Because the insurance companies some of insurance companies do life insurance. Yes. So if you have an insurance, a health bond on the market, the insurance folks will buy money into it. Yes. They see another financial window. They see an asset they can invest in. They look at the returns. They put the money there, so it goes bigger and it gets better. And that's how we should build a bigger cake.
Big cake for
we should build a bigger economy this time around. That for me is an opportunity we can't afford to miss. Yeah. We should do the same thing with agriculture. The various interventions we're giving folks in agro-allied and agro-processing.
We need to bring them up and look at how
we need to go together. The central bank and the bankers committee, and it's good that most of the banks in the bankers committee are listed on the stock exchange already. Yeah. The Access, the GT, the Zenith, the Wema, and the rest of them, Fidelity. Look, they should talk to these companies and these MSMEs. Can you include the package for listing on the exchange as part of the business proposal, of the engagement? Yeah. Look, this is a company, we can work with you to bring you to the market because we are also a listed bank. Yeah. We're a listed company. It's not enough to do business with them. And I will advise the CEOs who are within the bankers committee, at least all of them that are listed on the stock exchange or who has commercial papers, whatever, with the FMDQ and what have you, to please talk to these MSMEs as well and tell them that, look, come to the market. Find a way to bring them in. Maybe you need a separate desk in your bank that can help them, or you can midwife them and hand them over to Oscar Oyema, or hand them over to Bola Ondele Koko or Ajamale. I said, look, we're handing these guys over to you. Take them to the market, midwife them to the market. And if the Nigerian Stock Exchange, for example, or FMDQ, sees that Access Bank is handing over a company to us to take to the market, it makes it easy. In fact, it's more comfortable for the SMEs to know that Access Bank is taking me to the market. Yeah. Not as an issuing house or the financial advisor, but at least as a partner, so that the banks also become more comfortable in doing business with these MSMEs. The MSME is more comfortable because a bigger bank that is worth billions, a trillion naira or more, is taking me to the marketplace. That makes it much bigger. Then it reduces the work of the government.
Definitely.
So the government on one side, but I think the bankers shouldn't just be, CEOs shouldn't just be thinking about how they give loans to MSMEs and what they get back in terms of loan repayment and interest. They should also deepen the market by being an advocate of the debt capital market and the equity capital market, by making sure that some of these MSMEs in agriculture, in agro-allied, in logistics, in transportation, in processing and others, pharmaceuticals and all that, that they all come to the market as well. The market is still small.
Very important.
We have so many companies outside
that can deepen the size.
That can deepen the size and take us to 30, 40, 50 trillion naira. In terms of dollars, we should be well above $100 billion in terms of market size. Yeah. Okay, we can do more. We can have 1,000 companies, more than that, on our market from the various segments. If the banks that are already in there, if the MD of GT Bank or Zenith Bank Jimovia tells an MSME, let us go to the market together, I'll hand you over to the stock exchange or FMDQ, I'm sure they will listen more to him. Because they know that's where Jimovia also made his wealth. The market, Jimovia, one of the market makers, and the market also made him. Yeah. The same thing goes for Waigi Mokwede and
Africa's richest man.
Aliko Dangote. If Aliko says, let's go to the stock exchange, I'm sure you'll go with him. Yeah, I will go with him, by the way. If he says that, pro-share, let's take you to the market. I'm sure Femi Awuyemi today will say, let's go there. If Aliko is jumping out of the window, I'm going to jump with him. Because there's money there. Yeah. There is integrity, you get bigger. Yeah. So we shouldn't use this opportunity just to support the various sectors.
We need to key to the opportunities in the market.
At the end of the day, the market still remains the same. Yeah. Let's talk to the airlines as well. Yeah. Government can be billing everybody left, right, and center without us showing them the way to the debt market. And who tells you that if you go to the debt market, for example, or sorry, I mean the capital market, who tells you that you can't get international investors, or you can list on foreign exchanges, or do international other equity or bond or whatever offering? The sky is the limit. Yeah. I think we should not miss this opportunity. And those are my parting shots on this particular episode. I think we shouldn't miss this opportunity. We're billing out everybody left, right, and center. At the end of the day, we're not showing them the way to the marketplace. And we're just giving taxpayers money to everybody. And so the government should ask them to tell them something in return. In fact, the stock exchange, Bola Onodele, Ajo Male, they should move right now, talk to Godwin Emefiele, and go see the vice president and say, look, don't just bail out everybody. Tell them to come to list.
In the markets,
let them do capital raisings. Yes. If you don't want to list, go to FMDQ. Raise a bond.
Unlisted, you can
go to commercial paper. Yeah. Let the market also see the benefit of it. Let's deepen the financial markets. You can't run any country successfully without a strong and virile financial market. You need it. That's the home of capitalism. Yeah. It's the game.
Epicenter of
it's the epicenter of everything. That's the melting point from everything you have, from farm to table to kitchen to whatever. It all goes down. Look at Europe. Yeah. Those who are perfume makers, those who make jeans, those who make wristwatches, these companies are listed on the exchanges. Even those who produce meat and burgers, they're listed on those stock exchanges and other exchanges. So what's wrong with Nigeria? We'll say,
Nigeria has to get
if you have a good amala joint, you can list it on the exchange. Again, it just make you bigger. It make you bigger. You can have an amala chain that is across the 36 states of the federation. Who says you can't do it? And if it's CCA that you know how to do well, now you can do it.
And that gives you access.
And then it gives you access. Wow. So instead of just being in Agege or Ikeja or Lagos Island on that bridge alone, and you can just be across the 36 states of the federation. Yeah. And that's how small companies become global, and we read them in the news, see them on CNN, and we all scratching our head, oh, this is good. But how they become good? We need to find this opportunity to raise the game for the financial market. I'm sorry if I have taken much of your time.
No, we started today from the Economy and Politics show talking about IMF's concern about COVID-19's threat to the global financial stability. We've discussed with Mr. Patrick Eziagu, the chairman of assertion, that's Association of Securities Dealing Houses.
Yeah,
and they talked about, again, what they can do to support the economy, the capital market, social bonds, and all that. And here, again, Mr. Sola Obabori has talked about how logistics can also assess that. I mean, they've set the pace, assessing the market, doing activities in the market. So I believe that what you've said is very key. The capital market, financial market have a role in even uplifting millions of people from poverty. You saw the latest poverty figure. It was 40.1%, 82.9 million Nigerians poor. So
because there's no other way. You can keep trying to run the economy on the fiscal side and monetary side without getting the companies to come to the financial markets. We need to show them the path to the marketplace.
Definitely.
And we have more than one. We have about 5 or 6 securities exchanges, both in commodities, in equities, in debt, FX, this and that. So the market is much bigger. You have bigger and better experienced market professionals, brokerage houses, dealing firms, financial advisors, the rest of them. Good. Managed funds. We're doing dollar-denominated mutual funds already in the country. What else is it that we cannot do? Yes, we are. So
great time. This is a great time.
Just let the government have this closer embrace, this more working relationship with the financial market. So when you're telling sectors we want to finance cotton growers or textile producers, whatever, tell them they must go to the markets and find a way of making sure that you hand them over. And be sure that, yes, they make the market a top priority. That is the way. If not, we'll keep going around this boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust, and the market will keep struggling to find new companies to list, local, foreign, multinationals, non-multinationals. See, we can go on and on this, but I think we should just...
the advocacy continues.
The advocacy continues.
It continues.
Thank you.
Because the capital market, the financial market, and our policies must align to uplift millions from poverty. Create wealth.
Yeah, they need to be bedfellows.
Very important. It was interesting having Mr. Sola Obabori, Group Managing Director and CEO of Resta Express PLC, speaking on the COVID-19 and implications for logistics and supply chain business in the Nigerian economy. And also in the studio was Mr. Bosun Omofaye, CEO of Frontier Africa Report, who gave that very passionate call for all stakeholders, for business leaders, CEOs, and policymakers to take the financial and capital market in Nigeria at the front burner of driving our economy, creating wealth, and uplifting millions from poverty. And we believe that's the way to go. That'll be all for Market Review today. You can join our website, www.proshare.ng.com, to get news, stories, and reports. Also, this period, ProShare has packaged for you a platform, the Corona Central Watch, where you can get analysis data on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global and Nigerian economy. All you need to do is to log on to www.proshareng.com/COVID-19, and you'll get all those data analysis you need. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.